25 years on that bench gave people a particular impression of me. Steel, sharp, no nonsense. Someone who cut through excuses the way a blade cuts through paper, without hesitation and without apology. Most days, that impression was accurate. I built my career on saying the things others were too careful to say, on refusing to let anyone waste this court's time or run games in my room. That reputation is something I earned and something I keep. But one Tuesday morning in April did something to me that I had not anticipated and was not prepared for. A little girl walked through the doors of my courtroom holding her father's hand, and she said 4 words that brought everything in me to a complete stop. She said, "My daddy cries every night," and I, a woman who had reduced grown men to tears on national television without so much as adjusting my expression, went entirely silent. This is a story I have been carrying for a long time. It is a story about love, about what struggle actually looks like up close, and about what justice means when you remove all the formality and the ceremony and get down to what the work is really for. 25 years on the family court bench in Manhattan before the television program arrived. 25 years of watching humanity present itself without protective cover. Custody disputes, abuse cases, families coming apart at every seam and occasionally, against reasonable odds, finding their way back toward each other. People tend to believe courtrooms are cold places. Many of them are. Mine was never cold. Sharp, yes, fast-moving. Absolutely, I have no patience for nonsense, and I never cultivated any. But cold is a different thing entirely, and that was never what I brought into that room. I grew up in Queens. My father was a dentist. My mother was the kind of woman who could silence an entire room with a single look, a gift I apparently absorbed somewhere along the way. From an early age, I understood that I wanted to be a lawyer and then a judge. Not because power held any particular appeal to me, but because I genuinely believed, with the kind of conviction that takes hold at 15 and does not loosen, that the law applied correctly could be the greatest equalizer this country possesses. The capacity to look at a wealthy man and a poor man and treat them with identical weight. That idea ignited something in me, and it never stopped burning. My husband, Jerry, has been beside me through all of it. He is the steadiness to my speed, the patience to my impatience. He has pulled me back from edges and guided me back into rooms, and has never once asked me to be someone other than exactly who I am. What that kind of constancy is worth, I cannot adequately express. That particular Tuesday morning, my docket was full. Traffic matters, small civil disputes, parking violations, the category of cases that people outside the system tend to dismiss as trivial. I never dismissed them. Here is what years on this bench taught me early and reinforced continuously. To the person standing before you, nothing about their situation is minor. It is their life. It is happening to them at this moment. I was working through the morning when one file made me pause. A man named Daniel Reyes, 3 unpaid parking violations. Same street, always Tuesday or Thursday mornings. $45 each, $210 total with fees applied. On paper, unremarkable. But I have a particular sensitivity to patterns, and this one was telling me there was a story underneath it. When his name was called, he walked in. A young man in his early 30s, lean, with the kind of tiredness around his eyes that does not come from one bad night, but from an extended stretch of them. He was wearing a button-down shirt that had been carefully ironed. I noticed things like that, the deliberate effort people make to show up to a difficult moment with their dignity intact. I always notice it. He was holding the hand of a little girl. She was perhaps 4 years old, perhaps 5. Dark curly hair with a yellow hair tie, a small sunflower on it, a white dress printed with blue flowers. And pressed against her chest with both arms was a stuffed rabbit held the way you hold the most important thing you own. She was taking in my courtroom with enormous eyes, not frightened, not overwhelmed, simply curious, as though she were evaluating whether the space met her standards. I have had children in my courtroom before. It is not an uncommon occurrence. But something about this particular child stopped me before she had said a single word. It was the way she was holding her father's hand, not the grip of a child seeking comfort in an unfamiliar place. She was holding his hand the way a protector holds on. This small person in a sundress had come to look after her father. I read that in 3 seconds, and something in my chest shifted in a way I was not expecting. "Good morning," I said. "You are Daniel Reyes." "Yes, Your Honor," he said. He looked directly at me when he said it. "I appreciate that more than most people realize. Do not come into my courtroom and address the floor. Look at me." "And who is this?" I asked. He looked down at her and produced the specific smile that only parents produce, the one that breaks through regardless of what else is happening. "This is my daughter, Sophia," he said. I looked at Sophia and offered my greeting. She looked straight back at me with complete seriousness and said, "Good morning, Judge," as though she had rehearsed it, as though she understood this was important business and had arrived prepared to conduct it. A ripple of warmth moved through the courtroom. Even that room smiled. "Mr. Reyes," I said, looking at the file, "3 violations, same block, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tell me what is happening." He nodded. "Your Honor, I park in that location twice a week because it is the closest available spot to the school where Sophia attends her therapy program. She has a speech delay. The program runs 2 hours and 45 minutes. The parking limit is 1 hour. I cannot leave her in the middle of a session. I cannot afford the parking garage, which charges $12 each visit. I have looked for another option. There is not one." I set the file down. "You remain the entire time?" I asked. "Yes, Your Honor." I wait outside, sometimes in the car, sometimes on the bench near the entrance. "And work," I said. He paused the way people pause when the truthful answer is a difficult one. "I was working as a line cook," he said. "The restaurant closed 3 months ago. I have been doing grocery delivery shifts when I can get them. I am trying. I am trying." He said it quietly. No performance in it, no appeal for sympathy, just the plain statement of a man who had run short on resources and had not stopped moving anyway. I know that look. I spent 25 years in family court. I have seen that look 10,000 times, and it never stopped meaning something to me. And then Sophia tugged on her father's hand. He looked down at her. She looked up at him with those wide eyes, and then she looked directly up at me. No hesitation, no filter. The complete, unmediated honesty that children carry before the world teaches them otherwise. She said, "My daddy cries every night. Let me be clear about something. I am not a judge who dissolves at a moving story. I have been described as ruthless. I have been described as hard. I have been described as a great many things over the years, most of them by people who received in my courtroom exactly what they deserved. But those 4 words from that child landed somewhere in me that nothing had reached in a very long time. I removed my glasses. I set them on the bench. I pressed my fingers against my eyes for 1 moment, because here is the truth about children. They have not yet learned how to be dishonest about what matters. She was not working a strategy. She was not attempting to manipulate the outcome. She did not fully understand what she was doing. She was telling the truth the way children tell it, completely and cleanly and without apology. The truth she was telling was about love, about watching someone she loved carry something heavy and wanting another person in the room to know. I looked at Daniel Reyes. He was looking down at his daughter with the expression I recognized without any difficulty, a father undone by how much his child is capable of seeing, the love and the pain occupying the same face at the same time. He reached down and placed his hand gently on her hair and said softly, "It is okay, Misha." I cleared my throat. "Mr. Reyes," I said, "you are carrying a great deal right now." He looked up at me. His jaw tightened in the particular way people tighten when they have decided they are absolutely not going to come apart in a public room. He said, "Yes, Your Honor, but we are going to be okay." I believed him, not because his circumstances were easy, but because I believed he was the kind of man who would make that true through sheer stubbornness. The ironed shirt told me that. The way he held himself told me that. The fact that he had been showing up to that therapy center twice a week through every season and sitting on an outside bench to wait told me that. I looked at the file. $210. People hear a number like that and classify it as minor. For some people, it is. But I have sat across from enough people in enough rooms to understand that for a man running grocery delivery shifts to cover his rent, $210 is not a fine. It is a month of groceries. It is his daughter's shoes. It is the line between the lights staying on and the lights going out. My father told me throughout my life that the law exists to serve people. The moment it stops serving people, it stops being just. I have carried that as a working principle across my entire career. I looked at Daniel. I looked at Sophia, who had found something of considerable interest on the wall and was examining it with full concentration, rabbit secured under her arm. Mr. Reyes, I said, I have been on this bench long enough to read a person with some accuracy. What I see before me is a man who is doing everything correctly in a situation that is making everything difficult. He pressed his lips together. His eyes were bright. He nodded once. The fines are dismissed, I said. All three. Every single one. The sound that moved through my courtroom was an exhale. The entire room breathing out at once when something settles the way it was supposed to. Daniel looked at me, and I watched him search for words that were not arriving in any particular order. He opened his mouth and closed it again. He blinked several times. Your Honor, he said, I do not know how to thank you. Do not thank me, I said. Go home and take care of that little girl. That is thanks enough. And then Sophia turned from whatever had captured her attention on the wall, looked up at her father and said, Daddy, is it good? He laughed, a full laugh from somewhere deep in his chest, the kind that surfaces only when genuine relief has finally broken through. He picked her up and held her against him and said, Yes, baby, it is good. She patted his face with her small hand and said, I knew it. I looked down at the papers in front of me. I needed a moment, and I was not prepared to give the room the satisfaction of understanding why. My clerk placed a tissue beside me without a word. After all those years, she knew. I watched Daniel Reyes walk out with Sophia on his hip, her small legs swinging, her rabbit flopping against his shoulder. I sat there thinking about every parent I had ever encountered in a courtroom, in family court, in my own room, carrying things they had never requested help with, fighting for their children with whatever they had left, and then going home afterward and falling apart quietly when no one was watching. The afternoon proceeded. More cases, more people, more files. But I kept returning to those 4 words. My daddy cries every night. Around 2 p.m, a young woman appeared. Her name was Angela Moretti. She had a parking citation, but my clerk had flagged her file with a note indicating she had additional information to present. She stood before me and said, Your Honor, I am Daniel Reyes's sister. I set my pen down. She said, I was in the courtroom this morning with my nephew. I had brought Sophia in because Daniel was retrieving the car from the garage. I heard everything. I heard what she said. And I came back this afternoon because I need you to know who my brother is. Go ahead, I said. Daniel has been raising Sophia alone since she was 18 months old, she said. Her mother left when Sophia was diagnosed with the speech delay. She could not manage it. She walked out and she has not returned. Daniel has done all of it himself. Every appointment, every therapy session, not one missed in 3 years. He reads to her every single night. He taught himself the therapy techniques so he can practice them with her at home between sessions. He removes the crusts from her sandwiches because she does not like them. He searches for the butterfly clips for her hair because she loves butterflies. She paused. He never speaks about how hard it is. Not to me, not to our mother, not to anyone. He simply does what needs to be done. But Sophia hears him at night when he believes she is asleep. She hears him. I did not say a word. I listened to every sentence. Angela said, I am not here to contest my citation. I will pay whatever the amount is. I simply needed you to know who he is. Because this morning when Sophia said what she said, and I saw your expression, I understood that you had received it. But he deserves to be fully seen. He has been invisible for a very long time. I took a breath. Your ticket is dismissed, I said. She began to offer her thanks, and I raised one hand. Your brother is not invisible, I said. Not to that little girl, not to you, and not to me. You go home tonight and you tell him that. You tell him he is doing an extraordinary job, and you tell him that the legal matter he was worried about today is no longer his concern. She pressed her hand over her mouth. She nodded. Thank you, Your Honor, she said. Thank you for coming back, I told her. That required courage. She smiled through tears and walked out. My clerk set fresh coffee beside me and said nothing. That is the mark of someone who truly knows another person. I sat there, thinking about the quiet heroism that moves through this world largely unobserved. The people who appear every day and do the hard thing and the right thing and receive no headline for it, no ceremony, no moment of recognition from anyone outside the rooms where it is happening. My father used to say that you can know everything you need to know about a person's character by watching how they conduct themselves when no one is watching. Daniel Reyes had been conducting himself with extraordinary character for 3 years in parking lots and therapy waiting rooms and late at night when his daughter was almost asleep. Nobody was watching except she was. 3 days later, my clerk knocked on my chamber's door carrying the particular small smile that means something worth knowing about. Mr. Reyes and his daughter are here to see you, she said. Send them in. Daniel came through the door in a navy shirt, carefully ironed. Sophia came beside him, yellow sunflower hair tie, stuffed rabbit, the same wide, fearless eyes. She looked at me and grinned the way you greet someone you were expecting. I stood up. I do not do that often. Some moments simply require it. Daniel said, I hope it is acceptable that we came. Sit down, I said. He said, I wanted to thank you in person, not only for the fines, for listening. You actually listened. That is the job, I said. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, after we left on Tuesday, I sat in the car before I started driving. Sophia was in her car seat eating crackers, and I sat there thinking about what she said in your courtroom. He paused. I did not know she heard me. I believed I was quiet enough. I thought she was always asleep by then. He looked at his hands. I am going to do better. I do not want her carrying that weight. She is already working so hard. Can I tell you something? I said. Of course, he said. The fact that she heard you and then walked into that courtroom holding your hand the way a protector holds on, that is not evidence that you are failing. That is evidence that she loves you completely. Children do not protect people they fear. They protect people they love. Do not take that from her by concealing everything. Let her love you. He looked at me for a long moment. I watched something shift in his expression. I never considered it that way, he said. I have a feeling that little girl is going to keep surprising you for the rest of your life, I said. He smiled. A real one. And then Sophia, who had been attending to the entire conversation with her very serious face fully engaged, leaned forward and extended her rabbit across my desk in my direction. You can hold him, she said. He is nice. Let me say something plainly. I have received recognition and awards across a long career. I have been described as one of the most influential women in the history of television. I have accumulated a considerable number of impressive moments. Not one of them moved me the way that child extending a worn stuffed rabbit across a judge's desk moved me. I reached across and took him gently. What is his name? I asked. She said with complete seriousness, Mr. Flop. Mr. Flop is excellent company, I said. I am honored to meet him. She nodded, satisfied with that assessment, then held out her hand and I returned him. She tucked him back under her arm where he belonged. Daniel shook my hand, warm and firm. Thank you, Your Honor, he said, for Tuesday and for today. Take care of her and take care of yourself, I said. Both of those things matter equally. I will, he said. I believed him. Sophia looked back at me from the doorway and waved with her entire arm the way children wave, with total commitment and no self-consciousness whatsoever. Then she disappeared around the corner. I sat back down. I looked at the stack of files on my desk, the work that does not have a natural conclusion, and I thought about what this job has genuinely asked of me across all the years. Not the television program, not the recognition. the actual work, the work of looking at a person and seeing them truthfully, not their violation or their record or the legal summary, who they are, what they love, what they are fighting to protect. About 3 weeks after that visit, I received word that Daniel had been hired. A downtown restaurant reopening after renovation needed an experienced line cook, full-time position with benefits. The schedule provided Tuesday and Thursday mornings free. I sat with that for a while. The quiet kind of satisfaction, not the loud variety. The kind that settles into your chest and remains there. The kind that makes you think, yes, this is how it is supposed to go. $210. That is the amount that stood between that man and a harder road. $210 could have meant a suspended license, which would have meant no transportation to therapy, which would have meant gaps in Sophia's treatment, which would have meant slower progress for a little girl already working as hard as any child I have ever seen. One domino. That is the fragility of some lives. That is why every single case matters. That is why I never reduced this work to routine across 25 years. A few months later, I encountered them at a community event. Sophia had grown. She was speaking considerably more. Her sessions were producing results. She came toward me without any hesitation and said, "Judge," as though she had been expecting me. I crouched down and told her she looked wonderful. She said, "I know," with such total and unshakable confidence that I laughed from somewhere genuinely deep. Daniel shook my hand and told me things were going well. He looked different, rested. The weight that had been visible in April was no longer on him. He said his daughter had just been evaluated and her therapist had used the word remarkable. He said it slowly, as though he was still learning how to hold it without dropping it. "She really is a remarkable child," I said. "She gets it from somewhere," he said. He looked away briefly and cleared his throat. "I am working on deserving that. I think you are further along than you realize," I told him. We said our goodbyes. I watched him walk away with Sophia, skipping beside him, telling him something at considerable length with enthusiastic hand movements. He was listening to her with his complete and total attention, simply fully present with his child. I stood there for a moment after they were gone. This work, the real work, gave me something that no professional title ever could. It kept me connected to human life across all of its expressions. The struggling and the striving, the falling and the standing back up. The moments when people reveal who they truly are, not through prepared statements or formal presentations, but through small, unguarded moments that are completely real. A little girl extending a worn stuffed rabbit across a judge's desk because she wants to share the best thing she has with someone who was kind to her father. People ask me throughout my career whether I was too hard, too sharp, not soft enough. Here is what I believe. Being fair and being compassionate are not in conflict. The law requires a spine, and I provided one every day I occupied that bench. But a spine without a heart is simply a rigid structure. The law exists to deliver justice. And justice sometimes looks like one person being truly seen by another person who genuinely cares about what they find. That is what happened that Tuesday morning in April. I have not set it down since.